The Zenolink data view analysis for Brian Spitz. This is for a test collected in October of 2014. But we will compare to, we'll obviously review this data, but we're going to compare to a test that was performed in the last data test that is in the account of 2008, which is 6 years ago, quite a long time ago. But I thought it would be very interesting to just take a look at the differences and comparison, just for a slightly better insight as to where Brian was 6 years ago and where we are today. So we'll take a look at that. So we're looking at the performance factor again. 92% has dropped down to 86%, and obviously speeds are different. So we're looking at a different club, although the movement patterns themselves are going to be the same. Magnitudes aren't necessarily going to be the same. So it isn't the best comparison in the world, but it's still an interesting comparison. We see 85% utilization, 50% utilization of angular speed up to 72. So coordination has gotten a little bit better if you consider angular component, but speed output has dropped down a little bit as far as utilization, impact utilization. So that's interesting. Overall, though, the performance factor has gone up. So coordination is probably more effective overall. Let's take a look at the kinetic link. So let's just take a quick look at this kinetic link. So what we have is, for the most part, pretty good basic kinetic link. We've got the lower body driving off into the core, which drives the arms and then releases the club. So we have a really nice basic kinetic link sequencing going on. However, we see the arms kind of get out ahead, which is fine because they tuck back in and then drive off of the shoulders or off of the torso. So that's fine, and I've seen a lot of very high-level swings do that, and that's fine as long as the arms kind of get back in line. So they can drop into place and kind of get moving early as long as they kind of get back in line with the kinetic link, which they do with Brian, so that's not an issue. What is an issue as far as efficiency is the relative accel-decel pattern between the body segments. Of course, when you get out to the club, we have a nice release mechanism. Very high-level release speeds and very close, although it could be a little bit closer if we clean up some of the early-on movement. Really, the big one is going to be between the hips and the shoulders, or torso, the pelvis and the upper thoracic, and then obviously a little bit here between the arms and the torso itself. So we've got good kinetic link coordination, but we could improve that intersegmental coordination or that intersegmental relationship, especially on the accel-decel pattern of the more proximal segment. Let's take a look just real quick where we were before. Now, obviously, also we're looking at two different frame rates here, so it's not the best direct comparison, but we had a very nice kinetic link before, and we had slightly better, to some degree, intersegmental relationships. Although you can see that torso to arms is pretty similar. We had a little bit better lower body involvement overall, but generally kind of the same pattern, where the lower body wasn't as effective as it could. The torso, we had lacked some intersegmental coordination. We've got a little bit of that torso breakdown, but very, very much a similar type of pattern, although we've improved speeds and timing since then. So you get to see kind of where you've been and where you're going. With respect to lower body, we've got overall pretty good pattern. Pull this up here in a second, but I would like to just say, look, we've got good lateral stability, good initiation of forward weight shift right at transition, good overall forward weight shift. Maybe can move a little bit more forward, but generally speaking, we're in a good range, and almost kind of right there with the stability, a little bit of lateral instability through the impact zone, but that's probably the function of that little bit of an early release and just kind of allowing the body to kind of drift just a hair to maintain orientations and planes and stuff going into impact. So this is good, but something we can certainly improve. When you look at where we were 6 years ago, you have the same overall movement, but we had lateral instability, a late forward weight shift. A lot of the movement came late in the game, and we had that lateral instability. So you've got a significant improvement with respect to lower body mechanics. Same thing with core stability. As a function of that lateral instability in transition and then the late forward movement, you're going to get this pretty aggressive extension right bend scenario. and you still have a little bit more right bend and a little bit more extension than normal, but the pattern's much better. You see the little tendency towards that instability, but generally speaking, you're pretty much where you would expect it to be, about 25, like we've discussed, probably it's actually about like 27, 28 average. So we're in the ballpark with about 25. And lateral bending is usually about 8 centimeters or 8 degrees left, and then going into right. Posture at collision is a little bit more extended right bend than we would expect. So that's certainly something we want to look at. And part of this may be, related to the lower body mechanics. Even though the lower body mechanics have improved dramatically, a little bit of a tendency towards allowing the lower body to drift and open a little bit, and then that related to the spinal posture, anatomical posture. But generally speaking, comparatively, much better, and in general, very good. We just want to improve, continue to improve the dynamics, and that'll improve the postural stuff as well. Loading-wise, you get some loading, but not real effective at the core because of this relationship not being as clean as it could be. And you get a little bit of loading at the upper body, but again, not where we want it over here, not here, and it's not nowhere near as effective as it could be. So that's, again, that intersegmental relationship that we're dealing with. With respect to trajectory and impact trajectory, we've got most of our speed moving along the x-axis. We have a little bit of upward speed, which is good. With the driver, you want it to be zeroed out or close to zeroed out, or maybe even a little bit upward, just a hair, few miles per hour up. You've got inside out and up action going on. The inside out comparatively is maybe a little bit high, and you see this cross above the x-axis, which would tell us maybe miss that pinnacle just a little bit. So you are coming up, but there's relatively speaking, there's quite a bit of inside out. So that relationship is going to have an impact on collision for sure, ball flight and transmission or translation of speed from club head to ball. This should clean up a little bit as some of these other factors improve. All in all, everything looks pretty good, but we want to work on intersegmental relationship primarily, and as a function of that, some lower body mechanics, some core mechanic, stability-wise and postural, and then that'll improve our intersegmental stuff, but should also improve the lateral or linear type stabilities, and the timing and release of the club, which will improve, although it will slightly improve the delivery mechanism as well.